All right, we're back with another overtime. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Overtime number 37. This time I checked out Creep 2 from 2017. A couple months ago at this point, I watched Creep for an episode of the podcast, and that movie it piqued my interest. It was a unique little movie. So I kept meaning to check out the sequel. It had been a while, but I finally got around to it. So I finally watched it today. And this one, I was wondering how this one would compare to the first one, because so much of the first one is, you don't really know which way it's going to go, and you don't know you know, what the deal is with the creep of the movie. Um, Excuse me. But so I was wondering how it was gonna go, and I do think that they had enough little surprises and weird things that uh, it still kept you guessing. That being said, I don't know. I don't remember what I gave the last one, but I'm gonna give this one a 5.5. Um, it's fine. Uh, I think once again it's another one of these movies where there's not really a script, so they're just kind of feeding off of each other and like improvising. And sometimes that really works, and then some other times it's like, oh, they really should have probably written some stuff down for this one. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a 5.5. It's fine. It's definitely got some interesting things. This one, the first one was there was a lot of dark comedy in it, but I feel like this one, probably 75% of the movie is a dark comedy, and then maybe like the last 10-15 minutes it turns into like a bona fide horror movie. But yeah, it's interesting. It's on Netflix if you guys want to check it out. It's only like an hour 20 minutes. It's fucking perfect anytime a movie is like that length. It's found footage again. I was wondering too, because is it we've watched one where like the first movie is a found footage movie, and then the sequel isn't a found footage movie, and I was wondering if Creep would do that, where like this one would be a normally filmed movie, but no, it's another found footage movie, like the last one. So there you go. So hey, spoiler warning for Creep 2. If you've never seen it, I'm gonna ruin everything about it, so you've been warned. So the movie starts off with someone carving into something, and we're in the camera point of view. So it's like darkness and slowly light seeping in, and finally the guy has like the camera, and we see that it's the guy who plays Dopinder from Deadpool, the Deadpool and Deadpool 2, the cabbie who wants to be a sidekick. Um, and he's here, and it turns out that he was just sent this package from this random guy that apparently has been stalking him, and it's a camera. We'll end up finding out that it's a little stuffed wolf, which, hey, that's a callback to the first one, um, and a DVD that says "Watch Me" on it. So he puts in the DVD, and we can't see the DVD. We just see him on the couch watching it, but we hear like someone just whistling, and then there's a knock on his door, and he goes and answers the door, and he comes back with someone else, and it ends up being the guy from the first one, the killer. That I don't remember what he called himself in the first one. In this movie, he calls himself Aaron, which I did look and see that Aaron is the fake name that the main character of Creep gave him. So so now he's using that name. Uh, but yeah, so he invites Aaron in, and he's telling him, he's like, yeah, this guy keeps sending me packages, and he just sent me this one where it's a stuffed wolf, and the DVD is apparently him walking around with a camera in his house while Dopinder is asleep and filming him sleeping. And Aaron is like, oh my God, this is terrible. You need to call the police or something, And meanwhile, Dopinder does not seem bothered at all by what is on this videotape. Like, it seems like he could not care less. And he's like, no, I already called them. They can't do anything, which, Creep 1, the dude did call the police, and they couldn't do anything for him either. So he's like, listen, I don't want to worry about it. It's fine. And Aaron's like, no, really, you need to, like, get a gun or something. And he's like, no, I don't need a gun. And he's like, listen, how about I just go get us some beers and we can sit and talk? And so Aaron's like, all right, cool, that sounds good. So Dopinder goes to get them a beer, and as he does, Aaron looks at the camera and he's like, hey, and he starts smiling and shit. And so it's like, all right, the game is clearly still on here. So they sit at the table and they're having a beer, and Aaron starts to tell Dopinder that he really hates that he has to do this tonight because their relationship started out so hot and heavy, where they both met in a coffee shop and they were reading the same page of the same book, and their friendship started so good, but recently they've sort of fizzled out, and he hates it because he was going to give him this, or commemorate his friendship, he's been filming him ever since they met, and he takes the wolf and he's like, listen, there's a camera in this wolf. I've been the guy sending you packages. I was going to give you this 80-minute long movie to commemorate our friendship, but I'm turning 40 and I'm starting to lose my inspiration. And as he's saying this, you see him pull out this knife, like, from his boot, and Dopinder gets up to try to leave, but it's too late, and Aaron cuts his throat, and Dopinder is dead. And that's the opening of the movie. We immediately cut to a title card, and then we're introduced to the main character of this movie, who is a lady named Sarah, who she has a YouTube show called Encounters, where she goes and answers different, like, ads, like people who are like, hey, I want, there's a guy who's like, I just want someone to talk to, and she goes and she, see what's their deal, why are they putting ads like this on you or on websites. And there's a real, where the person who put the ad out that he just wants someone to talk to, there's a scene where they're just in a hot tub and they're just staring at each other, like, not saying anything, and it's very weird. And then there's, like, a guy who wants, like, to be treated like a baby and have someone be his mommy. And then another dude just likes, he likes to pass around chi with each other, and he, like, makes clay statues and shit. But that's basically what she does. And we're seeing all this, and then we zoom out and we see that she is filming the screen and that her video only got 9 views. And so she's feeling pretty dejected. She's like, hey, welcome to fucking Encounters, the show no one cares about. And then she's like, I'm starting to get the feeling that I'm deeply untalented. And I was like, oh shit. like we've all had that feeling at some point where you think you got something going, and then something happens and you're like, you know what? I'm just a sack of shit. I can't do anything right. So she's pretty down in the dumps. She's thinking about just ending the series because no one's watching it. But the next morning she wakes up and she's feeling a little better, and she sees an ad on the website for someone to come out and be a videographer for the day for $1,000 to come and film this guy, which is the same ad that he put up in the last movie. And so she messages him. And the first interesting thing here is because she messages him, and first off, he's like, do you scare easily? And she's like, no. And then he asks what her name is, and she starts to type a lie, and then she's like, oh, fuck it. And she sends her real name, which that was a big thing in Creep 1, is that Aaron would never actually tell the guy his real name. So that, instantly the guy, like, it would come back to bite him in the ass. So she tells him, she tells him her name, and he's like, all right, cool, let's meet up. So the next day, she goes, and she goes to his house, and she knocks on the door, and the door just, like, and creeps open. And this lady, her whole character is, like, she's not afraid of a lot of things, and she's just headstrong, and she keeps doing... Like, she keeps going after the story, like the best possible episode of Encounters. So that's her inspiration. But anytime I see this, I'm like, why wouldn't you instantly be like, I'm out of here, and just get the fuck out? Because, like, that's not supposed to happen. So she goes in, And she's like, "Hey, Aaron, are you here?" And she's calling for him. And then all of a sudden, it sounds like a chainsaw, but it's really a blender. And she looks over, and Aaron is at the blender, and he's like making a smoothie. And he turns around, and Aaron now has a full beard and a ponytail because I guess he's getting older, so he has a different look for this movie. Um, they get to talking, and she's like, "All right, well, hey, why'd you bring me out here?" And he goes, "Well, I'm a serial killer. It's the best job in the world. I love it. I've killed 39 people. But I'm turning 40, and I'm starting to lose my inspiration for what I do. It no longer, you know, it no longer gives me joy. It just feels like a job now." So he tells her that his new inspiration is to make new films, uh, and he wants her to come with him to make these new films. And he's going to open his soul to her and give her the best episode of encounters she could possibly have. And he promises not to kill her for the next 24 hours. And so she's like, "All right, sure." And she just goes right along with it. Um, then immediately he starts to show her old tapes he's made, and the tape he shows her is the end of the first movie, where it's him creeping up behind Aaron and putting the axe in his head or whatever. And so so he shows her. He's like, here's the movies I make, and you can see that he's like counting down his steps, like he has it all memorized. Once again, you hear that whistle. He's whistling again, which the whistle. It's a song where it's like, "I'm not a big bad wolf. I'm a friendly little rabbit," or something. Like that's what, he's whistling, and he sings it too, so you know what it's supposed to mean. Um so she sees the video and she's like, "All right, well, give me a second." So she goes upstairs to or no, I'm sorry. She's like, "Oh yeah, that's interesting." So he's like, "Give me a second." And so he runs upstairs, and she stays, excuse me, she stays downstairs, and she's like looking around, and she pans over, and we see that he has the axe like on his mantle over like the fireplace and shit. And finally, Aaron comes back down the stairs, and he's just wearing a towel. And he tells her that it's always been a thing between men and women where there's always an interest in seeing each other naked, and that's always in each other's minds. And so if they're going to go through this journey together, he wants there to be no walls, and so he wants to break that down. And so she's like, "All right, I agree." And then he just takes off his towel, and he's just hanging dong. 10 minutes into the movie, there's dong. So that's pretty cool. And he's like, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Yeah. And so she's like, "All right, is it my turn?" And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Yeah, is it my turn to go?" And he's like, I guess. I guess he didn't really expect her to do it. So she starts taking off his clothes, but he just like zooms in on her face, so you don't see any of her bits. And she's like, "Are we done now?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think we are." So instantly you're like, "All right, this chick is game. Like she's in for this." So she gets dressed again. This is when she goes upstairs to the bathroom, and she starts having a discussion with herself where she's like, on one hand, there's every red flag in the world. You shouldn't be here, and you haven't even been here for 10 minutes, and this dude's dick's been in your face. But on the other hand, you haven't even been here for 10 minutes, and the dude's dick's been in your face. That's exactly the type of person you've been looking for this show. So, the left hand wins out, and she's like, "Listen, I really need this. This needs, I need my big break. I need something to break through that ceiling and try to get more eyes on what I'm trying to do." So she decides to stay with dude. She leaves the bathroom, and immediately we get one of Aaron's famous jump scares where he just jumps out and yells at her. But true to what she said, she doesn't jump. And he's like, "Huh, that's weird. This is the first, she's like, "Hey, how come that this piece out of your beard is missing? And he's like, oh, it grows like that. It doesn't grow there. That's what his excuse is. Apparently, the actor Mark Duplass, who plays Aaron, just fucked up his beard when he was shaving, and that's why it's bald like that. So they just had to write it into the thing, and they give him a reason for it being bald later, because that's not the real reason. He'll explain the real reason later, but that's now he just tells her that, oh, that's just how it grows. But really, dude apparently went to like the guard fell out or something. He has a bald spot in his beard now, so that's that's cool. I'm trying to think of the guy. There's a movie where a dude has like a piece of his beard missing, and they just, oh no, it's Shaun of the Dead. Is it Ed? Fucking the fat dude. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but he has like a chunk of his hair missing out of the back of his head, and they just never mention it. Uh, so she decides to stay with him. Also, before she left the bathroom, she put a little pocket knife in her boot just in case, you know. So we know that she has a weapon. That pocket knife will not show up again until the last 10 minutes of the movie. So I hope you don't expect it to be popping up all the time. So they go to leave, and he goes around the corner first, and he immediately gives her another jump scare. But once again, it doesn't work, and he's like, "Huh, that is weird." So they're going to the first location that they're going to start filming like this episode, and they're driving down the road, and he's wearing the Peach Fuzz wolf mask from the first one. And he's like, what do you think? And she's like, well, as a passenger, I'm very afraid right now, because she doesn't know how well this dude can see, you know? But finally she's like, oh, I think you're cute, you know? And he's like, oh, really? You think I'm cute? And she's like, yeah, you're a cute little wolf. And he's like, well, what would you say if I said when we get to the end of this road, I'm going to cut off your head and snuggle fuck you? And I was like, first off, I don't even know what snuggle fuck means. But once again, Sarah, I feel like you should get out of here. And that, I think, that's not it. It pops up again. But that you only see Peach Fuzz twice in this whole movie. He wears it then, and then he wears it later on. But Peach Fuzz does not play as big of a part as it did in the first movie. So eventually they get to where they're going. It's like this another trail that they go walking down. And I guess the trail used to lead to this big river, but it's dried up recently because Aaron starts throwing a fit. He's like, I fucking scouted this place. It was this big river. I had this whole shot where I was going to be up to my neck in it because it was like a Jesus thing, and you know it was going to be a great shot, and he's freaking out. So Sarah finally is like, hey Aaron, what would Francis Ford Coppola do? And he's like, holy shit, you're right. So they improvise, and they have it where he's like sitting so the water's above his waist, and they're going to film him like that, and they're trying to get this scene filmed, but it turns into a 2-minute shtick scene where like a plane is flying over, and he's like, oh, we gotta wait for the plane, and then like a bird is singing, and she like will interrupt him and be like, oh, we got shadows on your face and stuff, you know. And some of this, I wonder if this literally is just happening, like the plane and the bird, because it looks like Aaron is like legitimately laughing, but this goes on for like 2 minutes, and finally he's like, I can't fucking do this anymore. So he gets up and like walks away to go take a break. Sarah has to go find him. As she goes looking for him, she passes this tree, and they don't like zoom in on it. You just barely see it, but you see that it has J plus D carved into the tree, and I wonder if that's another one of his past victims. Also, I thought it might have been the first movie, but then I remembered that the guy's name was Aaron in the first one, so it's not. So I think it's just another like victim he had. So she goes looking for him. Eventually she finds him like laying face down in the dirt, just crying and sad and shit. She takes him home, and dude is super upset, and he's just been sitting in the dark in this hot tub listening to the same song on repeat for an hour. and he wants Sarah to leave because he's like, it's going to be a bad night. I'm in a really bad mood. Just take your money and go. But she's like, no, we signed up to do this. You know, you need to talk to me. So she wants him to tell him, she wants him to tell her his story. So he tells her that when he was 15 years old, he was walking home, and this guy pulled over and offered him a ride home. And he said that the guy had a really kind face. And when he got into the car, the guy just kept saying, oh my God, this is going to be a really good day, you know? And so he took Aaron out to the woods and beat him within an inch of his life, and then tied his hands, or no, he made him dig his own grave and then tied his hands behind his back and told him that he was going to bury him alive. And Aaron talks about how he should have been afraid, but the guy was so electric and magnetic, and Aaron couldn't help but love him. And he talked about how, like, smart the guy was and how, you know, captivating he was, but he wasn't good at tying notes. He wasn't good at tying knots. So Aaron was able to get out of his bindings and strangle the guy to death. And he buried the guy, and then he felt compelled to take off his clothes and lay next to him naked. And he says that that was his new ritual, and he could absorb his, you know, someone's spirit, and he knew from that day on that's what he was destined to do. And so every victim he's had, he always lays next to them naked and absorbs their spirit. And that's why he has the bald spot in his beard, because one of the people he killed had a disease that I don't remember the name of, but it compels you to, like, rip out your hair. And he says that he inherited that from that guy's spirit. But he now says that all of that's gone, and that's why he's so sad, because he doesn't have any of that energy left in him. After he gets done telling that story, he's like, that's why I want you to leave, because tonight's going to be a very bad night. But she's like, Aaron, move up a little bit. And then she gets in the hot tub and sits behind him and just, like, rubs his chest and his neck. And Aaron is like, ugh, just making these weird noises. And this goes on for like a minute. And then she's like, do you feel better? And he's like, a little bit. And she's like, all right, cool. I'm going to go take a shower. And that's the end of that scene. So we cut to Aaron, who now has the camera, and he's talking to Sarah. And he's like, you're making me feel things I never thought I would feel again and shit. And he pans over, and there's a knife there. And so he takes the knife, and he sneaks into where Sarah is taking a shower. And he rips the curtain back. But as he does that, she jumps out from the side, and she's taped her face up. So her lip, she looks like a monster, but she's taped her face up. It's like what you would do in elementary school. And jumps out at him and scares him. And he's like, man, you got me. And she's like, yeah, how's that make you feel? And then Aaron starts to, like, wolf up and yell at her. And then she starts to yell back. And it was fucking terrible. Like, it was cringy, and, like, it was by far the worst scene of the movie. When we get to best of, worst of, it's a little spoiler, but that was my best of, worst of, or my worst of right there. It was really bad.
How do you feel?
I feel like
So then we cut to them playing this really weird, fucked up version of hide and go seek, where he's looking for Sarah and she, like, jumps out and scares him, and then she's running away and Aaron's, like, chasing her with a knife and shit, and, like, they're just having a good old time. And then it cuts to him chopping wood with an axe, and I do enjoy where she's like, you know, do you feel like hitting me in the face with that axe right now? And he's like, well, yeah, of course I do. Like, I just enjoy his little nonchalant, well, yeah, I do, but, you know, we're having so much fun. I don't want to do it now. They go back inside and they're playing pool, and she asks Aaron if, he ever feels remorse for any of his killings, and he's like, yeah, a little bit, but I always like to leave hints about what's coming, so it's not just catching people by surprise. And he talks about how, there was a guy recently that he made sure to put an axe outside so the guy could see it, and like that was the murder weapon, which is just the first movie where, and he even asked Aaron in the first movie if he thought that I was gonna, do you think I'm gonna kill you with that axe? And Aaron was like, oh, I don't want to know. So he's like, yeah, leave that there as a little hint. And so she's like, so does that mean you're planning on killing me with the blender? And he's like, oh, I hadn't even thought about that, but that's a good idea, but I promise not to kill you, so I'm not going to. And she says, well, technically you promised not to kill me for the next 24 hours. And Aaron's like, now why you gotta go and say that? That just gets you into trouble, And so already you can kind of see things cracking a little bit. All right, we're back. I went to go get ice cream in the middle of this recording, so I'm trying to remember actually where I was, though, as I started talking. So give me a second while I find where we were. Okay, so they're sitting there and they're talking, and he's like, I believe that you've been telling me the truth for the most part, but I feel like you might have been lying about some things. So he asks her if she really believes that he's a serial killer. And she admits that no, she doesn't really think that he's a serial killer because, the stories he's been telling, they just seem so ridiculous. And why would he tell her all this stuff when she could just go and tell the police and stuff? And he's like, well, that's a very good point, but it doesn't matter because tomorrow I'll be dead. And that's because tonight you're going to kill me. And so his whole thing right now is he talks about it's like his perfect movie. And the perfect ending is like the pupil coming back and killing the teacher and stuff. And he's like, it's perfect. And, what a better way to end the 40th video he's made than with him dying that way. And so he wants her to kill him. So she's kind of like, I don't know. She's real iffy about it. But he's like, trust me, it's going to be great. So this is when he runs upstairs again and he goes and gets the Peach Fuzz mask. And he comes back downstairs and he gives her the axe that he used from the first movie. And he's like, all right, here, take this. I sharpened it so it should go right through my neck. And, it'll be great. And so he lays down and he's like, all right, just go ahead. Just one quick strike. And so he's laying there with his neck down and she's holding it, but she can't bring herself to kill him. So he goes to plan B, which is to tie a noose around his neck and to jump off of the second balcony so that he's hanging himself. And technically she isn't the one killing him, but she's not going to help him and she's filming it. So she's like an accessory to murder. So he's like, it's not as cool as like a beheading, but it works all the same, And she's like, I don't know if we should do this. And then immediately he just like jumps and starts hanging himself. So she runs over and like rips him down so he doesn't end up dying. And that sort of crosses the line for Sarah. Like she's pissed. And when he finds her, she's like putting her shoes on and he keeps trying to talk to her, but she's like, fuck off, and she doesn't want to talk to him. So she's going to leave. So Aaron sort of panics and he runs over and he grabs a chest harness, and brings it back and says, look, I was wearing this when I jumped off the thing. It was tied to the rope. So, I wasn't really hanging myself. He goes, let me be honest with you. I'm not really a killer. I just want to connect with somebody and I have a hard time with it. And he starts going into that same spiel that he was giving the dude from the first one about how he's just trying to make a friend and he really feels connected to Sarah, but he doesn't know how to reach out. So he thought this would be a fun way to do it. He's like, I'm a pathological liar. I just lie all the time. And once again, I think I said it in the first episode where it's just like they made a movie about the Henry Rollins song Liar, where dude just keeps, and ha ha ha, you believed it again. And so he's telling her, hey, I'm a pathological liar, but she just goes along with everything he's saying. So she's like, all right, whatever, I can get over it. So she decides to stick around. They end up playing Two Truths and a Lie after this. And Aaron goes first, and he says that he was born 3 months premature. He's never slept with a woman, and he can hold his breath for 2.5 minutes. And Sarah's like, it must be the breath thing, but he's like, nope, it's number 2. So he tells her that he's never been with a woman, never even had a first kiss. He says he was in a psychiatric ward from like 14 to 19, and when he came out, like he was trying to reconnect with his parents and his family, and he just missed the boat on everything. So he's never been with a woman. That the family thing also brings up a thing that I wish they would have expanded on in this one, but they never do. If you remember in the first one, the main character gets a call from Aaron's sister, and who, he said it was his wife, but it turns out it's like his sister. They never mentioned the sister character again. Like, I wish they would have had a little bit more family stuff. Like, maybe the sister shows up in this one. Maybe the sister was the main character in this one. But they never do that. So yeah, he's like, yeah, I've never even kissed a girl. So she's like, well, do you want to have your first kiss? And he's like, yeah, that'd be nice. So she gives him a little smooch, and they have their first kiss. And he's like, that's pretty cool. After that, they go out into the middle of the woods, and he's like, listen, I want to give you something. So he has her close her eyes, and when she opens them, he has that heart locket that he gave the main character in the first movie. And he even says, he's like, sorry that it has, like another guy's picture in there. I wasn't really preparing on giving you this, you kind of caught me by surprise. And she's like, oh, okay, whatever, And then he's like, all right, now time for part 2. And he turns her, and she looks over, and there's a empty grave sitting there that's been dug up. And she's like, Aaron, when did you dig this? And he's like, I dug it before you got here. I didn't know if it was for you or for me, but now I think I finally figured it out. And so she like starts to reach down to her boot, but then Aaron has the camera, and he pulls out the pocket knife. And he's like, and he's like, I got the knife, I took it earlier when I fell on you. And he's like, this is the perfect ending. And then he starts to stab himself in the stomach. And she's sort of watching it like, oh shit, And he then tells her that they're both going to stab themselves and fall into the grave and die together like Romeo and Juliet. And it's the perfect ending. And so he's like, I'm not going to hurt you, I love you too much. So he like gives her the knife for her to stab herself. But of course, Sarah's not really feeling this, so she runs away. Also, the grave thing opens up a question like, did he not expect her to kill him with the axe when he was like, here, chop off my head? Because what if she would have went through with it then, if he had already had the grave dug and everything? And was he actually wearing that harness? Like, I took that as a lie, but maybe he was wearing the harness because, like, he wasn't planning on dying until now, I guess. But I'm not sure. So she runs away. Aaron has the camera, and he's, like, stumbling around, like, with a bunch of stab wounds in his stomach. And he's like, Sarah, come out, And it's almost a cool, like, reverse of when the main character in the last one was, like, looking around for Aaron before. Where now he's, like, stabbed, self-inflicted. But he's, like, having to look around for the girl. Eventually, she jumps out and attacks him. But she doesn't, like, keep stabbing him. She just knocks him down and, like, runs away. So he manages to catch her behind a tree. And you don't see it. But you just hear her getting stabbed. She's like, and she's like screaming. And I think you can see like it's Aaron's arm. I don't know if it's supposed to be like suspenseful, like you don't know which one got stabbed, but I'm pretty sure you can see Aaron's arm. And then the scene cuts to black. And when it comes back up, Aaron drags Sarah over into the grave and dumps her in. Uh, and then he crawls over to the camera, all stabbed up, and he's like, "Oh man," he's like, "I don't think I'm gonna die tonight." And I kind of feel guilty about that because this whole thing was my idea anyway, you know. And he's like, "But I love you, Sarah. This was you've reignited my passion. This was great. I'll always remember you. This is the best episode of what the fuck Encounters. I'm sad, you won't be here to see it." And you think it's like, oh, this guy's gonna get away with it again. But as he's talking, we see Sarah climb up out of the grave behind him, and she picks up the shovel and comes up and smacks him in the back of the head, and then you hear like her run off, and she goes away. And so it fades to black, and when the movie comes back up again, we see Sarah walking through like New York City or wherever she lives, and she's being followed by a person with a camera. You're not sure if she's filming something or if this is someone following her until they're on a subway train, and the person filming starts to do the whistle that Aaron has been doing throughout the whole movie. And she looks over and sees the camera, and she sort of got like a smile, and then when she sees the camera, you see her face drop. And so presumably Aaron is still alive, and now he is stalking Sarah. So who knows if that story will end up having a happy ending? Probably not. But that's the end of the movie. I think I saw either a trilogy was planned, or it did happen, or it's going to happen. So I need to look up if there's a third one. It's been 5 years since this movie came out, so it's been a while. So if it's not out now, I don't know if it'll ever be out. But we'll see. See if we got any facts here. No, I sort of ran through all the facts I had, and I couldn't find a budget for this movie either. So I don't have a budget or a release date, if there even was one. Also, I looked up Creep 3, and I don't think it is. I do see apparently Mark Duplass has said that they won't make a Creep 3 unless it's worthy of being made. Oh, Mark Duplass is also apparently part of this series that HBO had. I think it was HBO, or it might have been Showtime, called Room 104. That was like this weird psychological, every episode was different and stuff. It had some good moments in it. So that's cool. I didn't know about that. But yeah, so it doesn't look like a third one will be made for a while. Best of worst stuff for Creep 2. Worst of is when they're yelling at each other with her face all taped up and stuff. Like I said, it was terrible. I hated it. It was cringy. I was like, I don't like this. Best of. That's a tough one. What would be my best of? My best of might be the story he tells about his first kill at 15. Before, like, he starts getting the shoulder massage and stuff, like, before that happens. But just the story, and it's like, it's in this dark room, and, like, he's up to his neck in water and stuff. And, yeah, I don't know. It was just cool. So that might be my best part. That's the first thing that pops into my head when I think about it. But yeah, that's Creep 2. That's about all I got for this one. It's a little short overtime. It's been a while. We've been making a lot of longer episodes recently, so it's nice to kind of do one like this. But I wanted to watch this one. We finally did, and it was just as weird and unique as the first one. So I wasn't let down. But neither one of them are like a go-to movie. But they're they're unique. And they're easy to watch, so they got that going for them. But yeah, so that's it. Thanks for listening, watching me talk about Creep 2. I don't have any other overtimes planned right now. We're sort of doing, our Chucky marathon, so that's what's keeping us busy. I talked about watching the other Omen movies, and I own them, but I don't know when I'll get around to ever doing that. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Tyler's been real busy, so I don't know. I know we talked about doing like the Hatchet series or Wrong Turn or something like that, but we just haven't had the time. So we've just been. That's why it's been so long. I looked at the last overtime was when I did Lost Boys, and that was like 4 months ago or something. So it's just been busy, but hopefully we can get some out. But yeah. So thanks for listening to Creep 2. Coming out Friday will be Bride of Chucky. Hopefully, we haven't filmed it yet, so it might be another week where we have to change it. But hopefully, it's Bride of Chucky, and yeah. So some shorts should be out this week too. And yeah. Gaming channel, everything in the description. Go check that out, and I'll see you guys back here Friday when hopefully we'll be checking out Bride of Chucky. All right.